Okay, well, so welcome everybody. We're so happy that you're here. We have 91 people, it looks like. Wow, I don't know, that might be a record. Welcome to our Dual Credit Connections, Facilitating Student Success in Online Courses. As I said, we were expecting Dean Tony Badillo, Dean of Dual Credit in Early College High Schools, to be here, but she wasn't able to make it. We'll have Luz Cadena, who is a Distance Learning Support Services Director, Lorena Gonzalez, to right there, um, who is a dual credit instructional coordinator, Katherine Gar, who is a dual credit academic advisor, and me, Sue Selk, who is Lorena's partner in crime as a dual credit instructional coordinator. For those of you who have been to these workshops before. I was going to say orientation, but we kind of changed that title. And we changed the title again, you might notice, to Dual Credit Connections and focus on student success. And I think one of the reasons that we did that is we want to try to reach a little broader audience that sometimes we have. This is certainly for facilitators, especially new facilitators, but we encouraged administrators and coordinators and our instructors who teach EPCC online dual credit courses, counselors, because it's all those connections that can really help support those students in the online classes. Okay, if you want to go on to the next slide. I'm sorry, I have my notes here. In the agenda, I won't go through every single one because she's been showing it intermittently to you, but you can see we're doing the welcome right now. And we'll be talking about the facilitator roles and the handbook and communication evaluations and things like that. And Katherine Gar, who is one of our dual credit advisors, will be looking at facilitating from her own viewpoint because she was a facilitator. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And then, of course, in the last half of the presentation, as always, we have the fabulous Luz Cadena, who is going to be talking about some updates and, just getting those of you who are new, especially, um, understanding how you can get your students into Blackboard and so on and so forth. Okay, next slide. So let's begin with the idea of the facilitator and the importance of the facilitator. We'll also talk about why we really have to have a facilitator for an EPCC online course in the next slide. Facilitator support is really vital, and it's a vital component of the success of the student who's sitting in that lab taking an EPCC course from an EPCC instructor, and they don't have that instructor there in front of them. And so as a facilitator, many of you are teachers in your high schools, and you understand that face-to-face dynamic and how important that can be. But, times have changed and we have online courses. And so we really need you to be there to provide that support as a contact in case things go wrong. I know students sometimes have troubles with their computers, or they don't understand how something works, and especially as it comes to those initial difficulties. It's talked about in the second bullet in navigating that online course. You there to provide that initial support. And then also just helping to facilitate that students' understanding that this is a college course. And there are some things that they'll be doing that are going to be a little bit different. What does it mean to be in a college class? And of course, the instructor is going to help them with that too, but you're there in that face-to-face capacity. So that's a very important part. And students, encouraging the students to be independent learners, self-advocate, encouraging the students to reach out to the teachers. This summer, I had a dual credit section in my online class, and I was really surprised to have students in my team's office hours who, upon the encouragement of their facilitators, got into teams and asked me about things. And then some of them even called me on my office phone. And it was through the facilitators. And then they were comfortable doing that afterwards too. So it's really important that we have you in that lab or in the classroom, wherever you are supporting the students. Sometimes issues can occur, and we've noticed maybe a few red flags from time to time. Sometimes on our enrollment roster form, which we'll maybe talk a little bit about later, there's no facilitator named. That's not the well, that can be a problem when we need to find out who it is. But the bigger problem is if we have a facilitator that's listed on the enrollment roster form, and then the school makes a change, and then we're not apprised of that. And that can be kind of difficult in terms of getting that support going. And that's one of the reasons we added this to these bullets. And some confusion over the role too. And we're going to talk about that in the next couple of slides. Okay, so why? Well, why do we have to have do you have to have a facilitator for the online classes, a high school online facilitator? And it's because it's part of our procedure, right? And so high schools have to adhere as part of the interlocal or partnership agreements to EPCC procedures. EPCC has a lot of responsibilities too in terms of procedures and their responsibilities to the high school, right? But this high school has some responsibilities, especially as they pertain to facilitators. They have to designate a high school facilitator for students enrolled in online classes. And then some of what the procedure says is that the facilitator is responsible for the following: assisting students in collaboration with EPCC faculty, which I was talking about before, in navigating the online collegiate environment, that supporting them in their college course. And that's what we do in the community college too. I mean, just our face-to-face classes, we're helping them become college students, right? So it's a very similar role that we have. They're not the faculty of record, and the facilitator does not submit grades for the students. The EPCC faculty of record for online courses will submit the grades. So let's talk a little bit about the role. You can move to the next. There we go. Oh, I guess we had some more requirements, so I'm sorry about that. Yes, also ensuring that every student has a required textbook. Yeah, that's very important. And classroom materials as indicated on the course syllabus prior to the first day of class. So many of you that are already in the classroom as a facilitator understand the importance of this. Some of this has gotten a little bit easier in all the years. When I started way back with dual credit, textbooks were a huge issue. There's still a bit of an issue, but we have, first day access now for some textbooks. So it's right there in Blackboard for students. It depends on, what's being used. We have OER, that is textbooks that are embedded in either Blackboard or they're in a standalone website. And so some of this has become easier. You're also there to confirm that only the students on the EPCC banner class roster are participating in the online class. This one is a little puzzling to me because, I think if they're in Blackboard, then they're participating in the class. So you don't want somebody sitting there looking at somebody else's Blackboard, right? So you have to be really careful about that, the EPCC roster, and checking to make sure that it, it's matching. Any discrepancies that need to be reported immediately to the dual credit contact at your high school. So, this especially pertains to dual credit classes in the high school as well, where you don't want students who aren't on the EPCC roster right in the classroom. Okay, sorry about skipping that slide there. Now onto the roles. And I think this has become maybe obvious, especially if some of you are very seasoned facilitators. You might maybe have even seen your role change over the years, depending on your high school and then depending on the instructor that you have, of course. One of the things to keep in mind, especially if you are a new facilitator, your expectation needs to hinge on your relationship with the instructor. So some instructors like a closer working relationship than others, so the relationship may vary. Some facilitators are, of course, certified in the subject matter or highly qualified teachers. So the expectation might be for you or the instructor, especially, you need to work together with them, that you can provide a little more specific support because you understand the subject matter. Now, you're not going to supersede what the instructor, the EPC instructor, is requiring, but you certainly can add some of that support. The facilitator role might depend, they vary between the district and the particular school too. In larger districts, oftentimes you will have somebody who's like, I'm in speech, so you might have somebody, even though they don't have a master's degree, they're a highly qualified teacher in speech, so they will be there in the classroom. But in maybe smaller districts or just, not necessarily, it just depends on the circumstances. You might have somebody from the library, you might have a counselor, you might have an assistant principal, or, might be somebody from the office, there might be somebody else listed there. And their roles might not be conducive necessarily for being really, really involved. So they'll be there as a contact person and they'll be there to help out. But the expectation might be a little bit different. So that's something you're going to have to work out together. Sometimes there's a change in facilitators and when EPCC isn't notified, and I think that I had mentioned that before, is that it's kind of hard to know who the facilitator is. So I was thinking, I hate to put this on people, but if somebody does contact you because you were a facilitator before and it's in your particular school, you might be able to help us out a little bit by pointing us in the right direction instead of just saying, no, I'm not the facilitator and that's it. If you know who the facilitator is now for the class, that would really be great. And Lorena's going to talk a little bit about that, how you can find out the information about the instructors as well. Okay.
So we have some questions in the chat, but I'm gathering them and we'll get to them in a few moments.
I could see it.
They're good questions too. So.
Okay, very good. This is where Dean Badillo used to come in sometimes, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so one of the things that I mentioned, and I think Catherine is here somewhere, isn't she?
Yeah. Yes,
okay.
I'm here.
Yeah, very good, Catherine. Let's see, I'm going to get rid of this. I just want to see if I thought maybe I saw your picture, but I can't see you. So Katherine Gar is a dual credit advisor in early college high school, should I say advisor?
More for the comprehensive side.
Okay, comprehensive. Me too. Dual credit advisor, and she was also a facilitator, and she can tell you a little bit about that. And she's going to just talk a little bit about her experience. And if you want to write in, some of you want to write it in the chat and ask her questions, that would be great. So take it away, Catherine.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you, Sue and Lorena, for inviting me to speak to you all. Yes, so I was one of the high school teachers. I was an on-site U.S. history instructor, and then I facilitated for various courses like government, economics, psychology, sociology. And I mentioned those because, like Sue was saying, sometimes you're going to facilitate a course where you have a little bit more subject matter expertise, and then sometimes a little bit out of your wheelhouse, but there's still some tips that I, would like to provide for you all that helped me when I was facilitating some of these courses. I'll preface this with I was lucky enough to be on site. I saw my students every day. We had a period together. So hopefully you can take away some of these tips to help you out. Because being a facilitator is definitely more of an active role than maybe you're anticipating. Yeah, you're not delivering instruction or you're responsible for grades, but assisting those students, getting them oriented to feeling like a college student. It is a big transition, especially if it's their first time, and of course with an online class. So we can advance my points a little bit. Okay, there we go. So before the semester, I think the next slide, they're going to talk about the Facilitator Handbook. You can find this on the dual credit webpage, epcc.edu. Search for dual credit, look for documents, and you'll see a Facilitator Handbook. I highly recommend keeping this handbook nearby. I wish I had my first year to reference a little bit more. But there's some really great tips on how to assist your students at the beginning of the year, during the semester, at the end of the year, contact information, troubleshooting, Blackboard, any services that your students might need. All of that information is in the Facilitator Handbook. So highly recommend that you have that, saved on your tabs there. The next one, assist in building skills and routine. It is a transition, especially for online courses. It's super easy for students to close their laptop and that course doesn't exist for them until they open it again. So a lot of it is routine building. So they come into your class. This is the time that we're working on our dual credit course. There's always a couple of those students, no, miss, I'm going to work on it after school. Well, let's get in the habit of working on our assignments in class. A lot of them believe, I take 8 or 9 periods of courses, I can handle a college course. It's a little bit differently, right? We know that a full-time student is 4 to 5 classes. And for every hour you're in a college class, there's 2 to 3 hours outside dedicated to homework, reading assignments, and so on. So get them in that habit of working in your course. As you all know, the high schools start a little bit earlier than the colleges. And so there's that little, couple of weeks before our courses start. I would take advantage of that. I would give them quick assignments like I print out a calendar. Let's talk about how you're going to schedule your assignments outside of class. Those of them that know that they're in sports, clubs, organizations, they have meetings or practices or meets on the weekends. So kind of getting them in the habit of organizing themselves, talking about time management. I'm sure some of you are already doing these in your courses, but a little extra time and attention to help them getting ready for those college courses. Taking some time researching EPCC services, tutoring, writing center. All of our departments have virtual offices and their own webpage. So spending a little bit of time getting them used to, I have questions and I need to go to tutoring. Where do I go? And the last one, this was something that I would personally do every semester, was how to write an email. They have an online instructor and they may not actually see that person throughout their time in that course, but they're going to need to communicate with them. I'm sure some of us have gotten emails where the entire message is in the subject heading, or hi, I missed this assignment. When can I turn it in late? It's like, well, who are you? What class are you in? What section are you in? So not all of them understand that instructors have multiple sections of courses. So spending a little time on how do we communicate with instructors, especially if they're going to be asking for extended time to turn in some work or any questions on assignments. So helping them to be successful in that communication. And it makes it a lot easier for the instructors on their end to help that student out as well. And the last one before the semester, encourage your students, if you know you're at the campus with them, if they have an IEP, a 504, if they're receiving any accommodations in their courses, highly encourage them, because they do have to self-identify and reach out to the Center for Students with Disabilities. This is just going to save them and the instructors some time and some headaches possibly later on in the semester. I can think of my own example of having a student who needed accommodations. They were struggling. They thought that they automatically rolled over to the college. That's not necessarily the case. CSD reaches out to the instructor with those accommodations. So save some time, some headache for those students and those instructors, and encourage those students to seek out services with CSD. The next point, so at the beginning of the semester, obtain a copy of the course syllabus that you're facilitating for. I think this is just really helpful so that you're aware what the course is, what the demands are, the assignments, due dates, again, helping them to get oriented to the college calendar and making sure that they're keeping up with those assignments. I would typically ask a student on the first day to send me their syllabus. It's a good way to see if they're checking for that information. And I believe in another slide, they'll show you where you can find a copy of a course syllabi on our EPCC website. And of course, instructors are going to go over this information first day, first week. But again, I think it's helpful to just go over it again, review it with them, go over important information like contact information. Who's your instructor? We hear that all the time from online students. I'm not sure who my instructor is or how to get in touch with them. A big thing, again, is communication. A lot of instructors will put explicitly, contact me with your EPCC student email or through Blackboard. Not all of the ISD school emails are personal emails. They may not get that message. So if there's ever issues with communication, make sure that they're paying attention to that contact information. And a big one, you'll see it's underlined, late work and extra credit at the high school. I can remember as being a teacher, late work, extra credit, especially at the end of the semester. They kind of relied on it sometimes, and not all instructors have those policies. So just going over it again, letting them know this is going to look different. Every instructor has different policies. So it's always helpful, I think, to just review it with them and go over it. The next one. Thanks. Contact your EPCC instructor. Like Sue said, some instructors like closer working relationships than others. Sometimes you're going to build relationships over time. I was fortunate that I had an econ instructor that I had for multiple semesters, and I would always email at the beginning of the year, just identifying myself. Hey, these are my students. If you have any issues, if there is anything that I can do to support you, please let me know. Sometimes I would check in with grades. Hey, I know we just had a midterm. Is there anybody that I need to refer to services or a conversation with? Of course, any issues with course materials, textbooks. You know, of course, you want your students to be able to reach out to their instructor and communicate with them, but sometimes they need a little bit of help. So sitting down, writing an email, or what kind of question do you want to ask them? Sometimes they need a little bit of practice. And like Sue said, once they get into the groove, they can take off and do it on themselves. But sometimes they need a little bit of help talking about any issues that they're having in the course. Pre-COVID, I would often invite an instructor to campus. I did have one, and she was awesome. She came down, met the students, gave a lecture. They were able to meet them. And, you know, they're not just a person on the other side of the screen. Of course, now with virtual options, maybe that is something that you can offer to that particular instructor, of course, time permitting. But again, some instructors you're going to develop a really close relationship with, and you'll, you know, like Sue said, you'll adjust your role as you go on. And lastly, you're going to be assisting a lot. So it is an active role, like I said before. So making sure that they can log into Blackboard. This is where your Facilitator Handbook is going to be useful with troubleshooting or contact information if there's any issues. Making sure that they can get in and see their course, right? Or is it popping up for them? That might be an issue. I would display the calendar or the syllabus. So again, you know, once the semester starts, maybe you'll have a little bit more hands-off role, but students would walk into my class, I'd put up their syllabus. This is what you all need to be working on for this week or this day or whatever assignment that they have, just as, you know, getting in the routine and the habit of working on that when they're with you. Tutoring and study groups. Again, sometimes I facilitated with the content that I wasn't necessarily an expert in, but I would tell them, this is what you would be doing in college anyway, getting together with your classmates, collaborating, going over exams, assignments, working together. So if you know there's a midterm coming up or a final, you know, maybe suggest that they get into their study groups. Recommend student services. If you know they're not doing well, they need a little extra help. Of course, we tell them at our new student orientations, any services and resources available to our traditional students, dual credit can absolutely use as well. Tutoring has virtual tutoring 7 days a week. Writing Center absolutely has virtual services. So please encourage them to seek those out. Check in with their grades, maybe, you know, every 6 weeks, every 9 weeks when regular progress reports or report cards come out. Check in with your students. How are you doing? How are your grades? Do we need to have a conversation? Do we need to talk about reaching out to your instructor or seeking out those services? Encourage them to check their EPCC student email. This is a really big one that they often forget. Any information that's coming from the college is going to go to that EPCC email. And of course, if they need to communicate with instructors, that's going to be where they're going to do that from. And even have them encourage them to check out their degree work. So that's where it's kind of like their high school transcript, but the college side. They can check in with their GPA, their academic standing. They can look at their course progress, what courses they still need to take for a particular program. So there's all kinds of cool resources and services available from each of the departments. And then, of course, that they have access to of their own personal information. And really quickly before I depart here, if you need a dual credit workshop, if you'd like any help going over degree works, time management, organization, writing emails, please feel free to contact myself, Katherine Gar, or Laura Medrano. She's our other academic advisor, and we would be happy to help you all facilitate for your students. So thank you all. I really appreciate you giving me some time.
Thank you, Catherine. I think those tips are really great, especially from your perspective and your experience. I think it's important for everybody to hear that. I will add one small thing. You mentioned checking their student emails. That's so important. All week, we've been hearing about student evaluation, the numbers being very low for our faculty at EPCC, and those student evaluations are really important. So the more students check their email and take that evaluation, the better for everybody. So thank you for all those tips. Sue, before we go to the next slide, should we answer some questions? I think it's a good time.
I think
Because
so.
maybe Catherine has some insight on this too.
Which ones would you like to answer? I tried to answer as many
A
as
couple,
I
yeah,
could.
yeah. So the big one, I think a few people I noticed were like, yes, I was wondering the same thing. If the syllabus is not provided by the instructor until the first week of school, so next week for us, how can we assure our students have the required textbooks before the first day of class? We did have a response from one of our faculty who has come across this issue, and she sends the ISBN to all of her classes the week before classes start. So that's an option that some of our EPCC faculty may take it upon themselves. But in general, what could we do?
Well, I think actually there's a couple of things. Obviously, we do have a dual credit textbook list. However, that can be a little tricky because it kind of depends on, because part of our procedure is that schools have a 4-year window of use from the first purchase date in a district, not the school, but the district. And so sometimes, except for, I think government's on a 2-year, everybody goes with government. I can't remember who else. I don't know, economics, I think, used to do that too. But so we do have lists, and you can call Dean Badillo's office and find out which textbook is being used. But really, your dual credit contact should also have that information or know what's in the book room, what's required, right? So I think there's not one source for this.
Right.
But
Yeah. And the other component to that, which makes answering it a little bit tricky, and we understand that it's not a perfect system, is because we are the EPCC is providing the instructors. Some disciplines, they have the choice if our faculty are providing the instructor of record. So the textbooks could vary between instructor to instructor. So it is a tough situation, and we understand. We could, you can reach out to the office to see the instructor of record, your high school contact, to see who is labeled as the instructor. The tricky part there, though, is even this week, there's still changes in staffing on our side of things. So overall,
actually, I mean, you could also call us. I mean, that's one of the reasons we're here for, so, I mean, we can reach out to the discipline and find out. Lorena said something interesting there. If we receive an enrollment roster form, I do the online classes for speech because I'm a faculty coordinator at Viverdi. And so if I get that enrollment roster form, I am going to place them in our OER section that has the OER textbook. It's available to the students immediately. Sometimes schools don't do that, though, and they'll place students in a section, an online section of an instructor that has traditional students mixed in. And if they didn't request it and the students were placed, then you are going to use the textbook that the teacher, and we have choices sometimes. Not all disciplines do. They don't do the choices, but some of us do. So, yeah, I don't know if we answered that very well, but you certainly can reach out to us, and we can put our contact information in we can put it in the chat.
And I think getting in contact with that instructor as early as possible maybe is
Yep.
another like first
Yes.
route to go with, because it could be a situation like Patricia Garcia mentioned in
Yes.
her comm classes, she does send out information for, and maybe
Right.
your students are assigned. I also think, as Sue mentioned, coordinators are aware of instructors who often take the dual credit sections. So I think there's a
Right.
pattern established of maybe they
Right.
still use the same textbooks every year. So I think reaching out to the instructor
Right.
as soon as you know the person, even if they get changed, they can forward you to the next instructor if possible.
I just saw somebody in the chat. We are still waiting for,
Registration of a few.
registration of these sections. Our school won't issue books or codes until the census date. Electronic books get a free 2-week temporary code. Many instructors link a PDF to the first few chapters
Yeah, there's
as
different
well.
disciplines
Yes.
have different
Mhm.
options. I know in math, a lot of our homework systems, WebAssign, Pearson, they have a 2-week free window for full access. So I think that also gives a little bit of buffer. But we understand the struggle of trying to get the textbooks, and you want to be prepared. You want the students to start off in the right place, and it
For
can be a
sure.
little challenging. Yeah.
And the unknown user did say something interesting too. We're still waiting for registration of a few sections, and that certainly can be the case sometimes. Maybe not quite as much in online classes because the students are populated. If you're teaching a face-to-face classes, along with facilitating, you might find that you don't have all of your students in your classes yet. And I noticed there was another thing, comment in the chat about somebody talking about being a teacher. I did recommend a couple of people to come to this. I mean, they were talking about how they don't know how to get their students into Blackboard because they're new. Well, Luz is going to tell you how to do that. And that's why I suggest that we have teachers come who are brand new.
Right. And if you are brand new, an on-site instructor, stick around at the end. Sue and I can give you some additional resources that you may find useful. Yes, WebAssign gives 2 weeks free trial. Census stated a little bit longer than 2 weeks, but at least the students are able to get started, right? Yeah, get started.
It's tricky, and there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it is a tricky thing.
It's one of the,
but I think everybody kind of understands that as well.
Right. It's one of the reasons we went to a book that's accessible on a site, because it made it a lot easier. Okay, are you going to talk about handbooks?
Yes, I'll go on to the handbooks. Yes. So Katherine did mention this, and I appreciate that they are useful, because I know Sue has worked with these for many years now. But on our dual credit website, if you go to EPCC/academic/dual credit, on the left side, click documents, there's a whole list of forms, textbook lists, course lists, a lot of nice information. But towards the bottom is more of the instructor side of things. We do have information handbooks for administrators, facilitators, instructors, parents, and students. We update these as much as possible for everybody to be able to get into them. The Facilitator Handbook was recently updated. I think we're going to do a quick update. We renamed our registration system. It's self-service banner now, so we're updating that title in the handbooks. But these are really great places of information. If you feel there's something missing from the handbook, please let Sue and I know if there's a situation that we can explain a little bit better. We're always looking for feedback on them. But yeah, the handbook is here. You can see below there's other professional development. The spring workshop, we record them, we post them, the PowerPoints to the website with the link to the recording. So great information on our website, and we hope you visit and look around the other tabs as well. There's a lot of good stuff on there. Communication. As Katherine was mentioning, it's really important to be in communication with your instructor. And for those EPCC faculty who are here with us as well, it's important to reach out for or look out for them as well if they do reach out to you. So for those that are facilitators at the high school, how do you get in contact with your instructor? We used to have a different system. We've been trying to figure out a better way. Again, if you have an idea, let us know. we're still kind of in that place of however we can get there almost. But your high school contact who has those ERFs, who has the registration information, they should have the name of the course information, the name of the instructor. And you can go to our EPCC website, just the main website. On the right-hand side, click the search feature, search for people, put in the instructor's name, and you get their email and their phone number. So then you can reach out that way. Another method of finding that information, if you know the course and if you know the instructor of record and you want to find the syllabus, you can go to our catalogs and schedules pages on the main EPCC website. You go to the home page, click open the menu on the right, click academics, catalog and schedules, and you'll see a place for syllabi, right? There's a state mandate that all instructors have to have their syllabus uploaded within the first week. So that information is for the public. You can download the syllabus, contact information should be on there, grade scales, all their policies outlined. So that's another way to get that information. Yes, so here's the search feature. Again, search for the people. It's a really good search engine now. We've been using this for quite a bit, and I use it almost every day still, so it's really nice. And this is that course and faculty information page. You'll select the term, what course it is, and the faculty should have their syllabi uploaded within the first week, the first 7 days of classes. So by the end of next week, your syllabus for your students should be uploaded here in the least.
Aha, I believe that's my turn. I think Lorena mentioned this too, and this has to do with the importance of instructor evaluations and the students checking their EPCC email and us relying on you as facilitators to help encourage them to check those emails because back in the day, we distributed many packets of paper evaluations to the high schools, and then they, would be distributed and so on and so forth. But those days are gone. And the instructor evaluations are now online only. And so students will be sent an email, but they're only going to be able to access the email if they actually open their email. So it's really important, and we really rely on you as a facilitator to encourage the students about the last 3 weeks of class, maybe the 4 weeks for end of the semester. You could start thinking about reminding them, and then once they get into their email, they should be able to see the subject, which would be online faculty evaluation of performance survey. And once they open the email, they'll click on the click here for the survey. When they click the link, then they'll actually be able to access the survey and to complete the survey. And I had this written down too, and I think I'll repeat it. For somebody, I'm a couple years from retirement probably, and I really love to have student feedback, but it's not as important for me as it is for the people who are coming on board as tenure track faculty. Those evaluations go into their tenure binder. And so we really ask your help for getting them some evaluations. And of course, all of us really like to get feedback from our students. So that's an important thing that we really rely on you. So we'll hopefully
yes,
you'll
we'd
be
really
able to help us.
grateful
Yes,
for those
very,
evaluations.
very, very grateful. It's been kind of a bad transition. We used to, get these stacks of, 25 evaluations or whatever. People are absent sometimes, but now sometimes it's 2 and 3 and 4, and that's just not very good. So we're asking for your help.
Yes.
Okay. And I think, we've mentioned this before. I mentioned it earlier on that as a facilitator, you're not the instructor of record. You're very important, but there is an instructor of record. And since the dual credit, this is a college course taken for dual credit. It's an instructor of record that will be submitting the final grade. It's okay to communicate, as Katherine mentioned. I really liked what she said about asking your students about their grades. They don't necessarily have to, they can ask for a progress report as it says here, and I'll get to that in a second. But just initiating that conversation, how are your grades doing? It is not a violation of FERPA for you to ask that or to even look over their shoulder to look at their grades. And you can talk about it at the very end. You can see Robert Garcia's information there just to reassure you, but you are an employee of that district, and you are in the classroom with the student. And so it really isn't a violation. We checked that with the lawyers, and so feel comfortable with that, talking to them about their grades, reaching out to the instructor. Okay, so now the important thing to remember, though, is that if you're going to then start to talk to the instructor about grades, EPCC instructors really are not required to share that information with the facilitator. Many of us do. I don't have a problem, especially with problem students who I'm really worried about. I find sometimes facilitators really can help facilitate that. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's okay to communicate regarding the student progress and attendance, but not numeric final grades. So the instructor of record is not going to be able to tell you, and even the letter grade, because the letter grade is what we give. We don't give a numeric grade, right? And so sometimes facilitators will email instructors and say, can I have the percentage? And that's just we're not allowed to do that, right? So please don't ask. Your high schools have a formula where they will convert the letter grade into a numeric grade, right, Lorena? I'm just making sure I'm saying that the right way. The final grade is sent to EPCC's registrar's office directly to the school or the ISD. There is a dashboard at every school, and people have access to the dashboard. So those people who have access would be able to access the grade records. The students throughout the semester do have access, and there's a link right there to the academic progress report. I think that's a great idea. There can be a problem sometimes, though. First of all, if the facilitator asks for it, it's a student who has to ask for the progress report. And so the student would have to go into this link. Sometimes schools will ask a whole section. They'll say, tell all 25 students. Well, if you do that to an instructor, you're not going to get the progress reports immediately, right? I mean, you have to give them just a little time to get the report back to the student. I think it works better Catherine's way. You're just really having a dialogue with the student, but they can access that information. And then the FERPA questions, if you are hesitant about anything like that, Robert Garcia, who's Associate Director of Admissions and Registrar, would be able to answer your questions about that. Okay.
Any other questions before we move to the Blackboard part?
I think we have a couple of chats, or is it anything we need to?
No, I think it's the.
I think we got that. I think we're okay. Any questions? I'm a library paraprofessional. I have 3 dual credit classes I need to facilitate. How do I take attendance? How do I even check their grades to help them if they are falling behind? I think Catherine actually said it very well, is ask them, right? I mean, that's how you, the teacher is going to be taking attendance. I don't know what your school requires. I mean, you would take attendance the way your high school asks you to take attendance, right? And then the online instructor, we take attendance kind of in different ways. It has to do with maybe logging in. I don't know what they do. Do you do that in math, Lorena, or?
It's active, like you're active in the course, you're completing assignments.
Right. Yeah, it's pursuit. It's about pursuit of the course. And so we don't necessarily count logins or anything like that. But that attendance, if there's some kind of attendance requirement in your lab, classroom, whatever we're calling that.
High school side.
It's on the high school side. You would follow that, but you don't have to worry about attendance in terms of the other. And I would talk to your students and just ask how they're doing. And I know that sometimes professors are a little behind in grading and things like that. But I think most of us are good about it. I mean, I really do try to keep the grades updated. And so then you can see if they're having difficulty, and maybe talking to the instructor too. That could be very helpful, and just say, oh, do you have any concerns? Is there anything I can do to help? And establish that relationship with the facilitator. Okay, Miss Luz, are you here? There you are.
Hello, hi everyone.
How you doing?
Doing well, thank you. I'm looking outside. Looks
Good.
like it might be raining again.
Oh,
So
wow.
stay safe out there, everyone. Stay safe. So hi everyone. My name is Luz, and I am the Director of Distance Learning Support Services. And I want to share some information with you with regard to Blackboard especially. So let's do this. Do I have control of the PowerPoint? No, I don't.
I can give you control.
Okay. Oh, yeah, if it makes it easier for you. Absolutely. All right. So the best place for students to access Blackboard is through my EPCC. And this does two things. One, it gets them access to Blackboard, but two, it makes sure that they have their login credentials. Because if students can log into my EPCC, they can log into Blackboard because it's the exact same credentials. And it is the best place for them to access it because it also reminds them that on that little button right there, they can also check their email. I believe, I don't know if these have changed, but I think they can also access where they can evaluate courses there through my EPCC. That hasn't changed. So there's lots of great information on my EPCC with regard to school events, college events, some that are virtual. From my EPCC, they can access their email. They can even access and download Microsoft Office for free as a college student. So there's lots of great things about having students access my EPCC. Okay, so because EPCC has gone to single sign-on, which means one login, one password for just about everything. One, that means that facilitators cannot access Blackboard because they don't have those EPCC college credentials. So that answers one of their questions. But also that means that because IT oversees those logins and passwords, it's IT who has to help students log into Blackboard and log into my EPCC. So if students don't know their login credentials or need to reset a password, the best thing really is to have them try first the account recovery page on the EPCC website, which I believe we may show you in just a moment. But they would also need to call the EPCC IT department for assistance with those credentials. But here is the kicker. Here's the important part. Students often call the Blackboard, the IT help desk and say, I can't log into Blackboard. And the minute they say that B word, Blackboard, they'll kick them over to distance learning. And then they come to us and say, I don't know my login or my credentials. And we say, sorry, but we don't handle that. It is the IT department. So make sure students say, I can't log into my EPCC, because then the IT department will help them do that. Now, once those credentials are accepted and they're able to log into my EPCC, but for some reason they can't log into Blackboard, and that shouldn't happen. But if for some reason they can't log into Blackboard after having those credentials, then they can certainly come our way so we can figure out what's going on. It might be something else. But remember, students don't have access to Blackboard until they are registered into a course. It's that course that goes into Banner, then that sends that information to Blackboard that says this student is now taking a course at EPCC and they now have access to the system. Okay. All right, let's move on. So do I have access or no? I do. Super cool. All right. So here is that account recovery page off of the EPCC website. Student goes to epcc.edu. On the right-hand corner, they trigger that menu. And toward the bottom of that menu, they can see account recovery. Now, one of the reasons why students sometimes can't use the account recovery is because they need a backup email in Banner. And most, if not all, our dual credit students don't register themselves through Banner. It's done for them. So they've never gone into self-service Banner to set up those kinds of recover your email kind of things. So if they can't do, again, account recovery, please have them call the IT help desk at 831-6440. All right, so once students log into Blackboard, where do they find their courses? They log into Blackboard, they click on that courses link on the base navigation menu, and it lands on the current courses page. So if a student logs into Blackboard today, they're not going to see any courses under current courses because they're not current courses. Those are upcoming courses. So if they trigger that little arrow on the right-hand side, they'll see their courses listed that they're registered for fall. However, they won't be able to access them. They don't open to students until 12:01 a.m. on the first day of the term, which in most cases is the 28th of August. Now, if they're registered for a mini-mester too, and I don't know if dual credits take mini-mesters, but of course, those courses will open in October. Okay, so those courses will shift over to their current courses list on Monday. Okay, now courses close to students at 11:59 p.m. on the last day of the term. So most dual credit students are taking 16-week courses at 11:59 p.m. on December the 15th, I believe. Those courses will close to students. They will no longer be able to submit coursework unless instructors submit incompletes, but I don't know we have a lot of incompletes for dual credits. I'm assuming they can do one, but I'm sure most don't. So students need to make sure they submit all their coursework by those deadlines. There you go.
Are you looking at the chat,
Before
Liz?
we go a little further, there was
Sure.
a question about a Windows security and passwords. I know you were just on that page right now.
Yes, Windows security. So IT has implemented, because we need to, I think by law, implement more securities at EPCC. So IT has implemented multi-factor authentication. Many of us are familiar with multi-factor authentication. We need to do it when we access credit card accounts or bank accounts, things of that nature. So EPCC has implemented that too. If students need assistance with multi-factor authentication, they will need to contact the IT help desk. And one of the easiest things to do is to download the Authenticator app onto their phone so that they can authenticate that way. But it'll do something like send them a code to their phone, to their text, via text. It could even do phone call, but text is probably the most common way of doing that. But if they do need assistance with that, they need to call the IT help desk. Now, as part of the what are they called? The visits that my technical coordinator makes to the high schools on the yearly basis, that's one of the things that we've added to the list, is that multi-factor authentication, so he can make sure that there are no issues with firewalls and those kinds of things. So yes, IT help desk will help students with multi-factor authentication. Okay, and let's see, what was the other question here?
It was one about Blackboard certification, I think.
Blackboard certification training. So I can address that really quickly. So we will continue to offer Blackboard certification training every semester. But you do need access to Blackboard in order to take the training because it is in Blackboard. We do offer a few face-to-faces, but as full-time high school teachers, you probably don't have the time to do that during the December and May. In the summer, we have had some faculty do that. So you do need access to Blackboard in order to do that, which means you need credentials.
Right.
So that's the issue there. Now, I know sometimes facilitators are preparing to perhaps credential to maybe teach dual credit or courses in the future. If that's the case, there are some ways around it. Those teachers are sometimes put into a training, I think, through dual credit. Is that true, Miss Lorena?
Yeah.
Yeah, the modules. So that gets you access to
Right.
the system, which means at that point we can get you into some training also. Now,
They are a student at that point. That doesn't make a difference, right?
Nope, as long as
Right.
they have that
Right.
email, they get into Blackboard.
And keep in mind, some of the folks in here are instructors, because we had instructors come to the meeting too, so they might be an instructor.
Instructors who are facilitating a different subject and all kinds of
Absolutely.
mixed
Yeah.
in, yeah.
So we do advertise our trainings, and one's going to be advertised next week via email. And I know the struggle there is, the challenge there is that you all don't necessarily always get those emails. So I'm trying to make it more of a point to remind myself to send that email to Dean Badillo's office, so her office can then send it out to all our dual credit partners, so that you're aware of those trainings. But we offer traditionally at this point 2 every semester, kind of a mini-mester 1, mini-mester 2. Okay. And if you have any other questions about training, you can always email dlss@epcc.edu. Okay. So let me see if there's any other questions. Training.
That somebody's asking about if we have completed the modules. So you're going to be a dual credit instructor. You need to be assigned a course, an EPCC course, and your faculty, what did we say last night? It's a faculty something action form.
Faculty assignment action.
Assignment action form. And that goes through the dean's office. We are trying to get the dean's offices to do FAFs early for dual credit instructors, because they do them later for instructors who get paid, right? So many deans are doing them early. So you can contact your dean's office, or you can contact Lorena and I, and we can tell you how to go about finding out.
One of the things we did for the first time this summer, and we took this from the dual credits page, is to create a continuing ed course certification training. And that allowed faculty who were new but not officially hired yet at EPCC to take the certification training in July into August. So we are considering doing our mini-mester 2 training as a CE course, because it just takes a little bit of paperwork to get that done, and it's a little too short notice right now, but we're probably going to offer that. So if you don't have credentials yet and you'd like to take the training, we'll probably open up that CE course late September. So just check your email for a notification from Dean Badillo. We'll send that information out to everyone. Okay.
We had one more question. If a student who has never logged into EPCC self-service banner or Blackboard, this is their first course, how do they get set up?
They need to have their username, which I believe are on the rosters. Are their usernames on the rosters that they get? I know their
high school
ID
contact
is,
would have that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's their email, essentially, their username. And then there is a default password for new users, something having to do with their birth date, EPCC dash, and then 6 digits, I think. And then they have to reset that password. Yeah. So one of the things that can be really, really helpful to you all is the student handbook, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. That'll provide students a lot of information about how to get started. So we'll talk about that in just a few slides. So let's go ahead and move on so we can address some of those questions. So just a couple of FAQs. The facilitators again have access to Blackboard. They don't at this point. Discussions continue to take place, but they have taken place. We've not gotten anywhere yet, but we keep that there because we're going to continue to have those conversations to see things change, technology changes, things like that. So we'll continue to have those conversations. Can Blackboard courses be opened early? And we have gotten calls from dual credit high school faculty, and we can't open those early. Those courses are set by banner. It's about contact hours for the college, and so those dates have to stay as they are. So we cannot open Blackboard early, nor can we keep it open later. Not just Blackboard, but the courses. Okay, if there is no content in the course, this does happen for a lot of reasons. I just had a faculty coordinator tell me today, oh, someone just resigned and now I have to fill that position. So sometimes we're still into Monday and Tuesday, and some coordinators and deans are still trying to hire faculty to teach, and maybe that's why there's no content in the course. But you can contact the dean or the coordinator immediately just to see what's kind of going on. Sometimes there is no good reason for there not being any content in that course. So contact your coordinator as quickly as possible so we can see what's going on. Okay. If a student's course is not in Blackboard, first check banner to see if that student is registered for the course. So Blackboard doesn't do anything on its own. It doesn't do anything independently. Blackboard relies on receiving data from Banner. That includes faculty enrollments and student enrollments. The downside is that Banner only communicates with Blackboard 3 times a day, 7 a.m., 3 p.m., and 7 p.m. So if a student was just entered into Banner, into that course at 8 a.m., the student's not going to appear in Blackboard until 3 p.m. Okay, now we are working with IT for those updates to take place every hour on the hour from about 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we're working on that project right now. But for now, remember that it can take up to about 8 to 12 hours for that information to show up on Blackboard. But if you say, you know, it's 5 p.m. now and they were registered yesterday at 8 a.m., definitely give us a call so we can see what's going on. Okay, because it does take a little bit of time, and always check that Banner roster. We've had instances where students complete courses when they're not officially registered for courses. So we need to just consistently check those Banner courses to make sure they are accurate. Okay. All right, let's see here. What's next? So we have completed our transition to Ultra. So all our courses at EPCC starting this fall are in this new course view, which now with the ability to add images to the modules, I love. The courses look really, really cool. So all the courses look like this. They'll all be in Ultra. Distance learning is enrolling all students into an Ultra tutorial. We have like right now 17,000 students in that tutorial. We're updating the fall enrollment. So it's a place for them to go and get some information about Blackboard. How do they do things? There's even practice things they can do. They can do a practice discussion board and an assignment, things of that nature. So that's a great resource for students. But all our courses will be in Blackboard Learn Ultra. It's just easier for faculty and students to navigate. It's mobile friendly. So even if they're not using the Blackboard app, and we encourage students to download the Blackboard app, they can access through the web on their phone Ultra, and it's responsive. If you've ever tried to log into Blackboard Learn Original through your mobile device, it's horrible. But Ultra is responsive and it works. So we don't encourage students to submit things like essays via their mobile phones. But in a pinch, if they need to submit a discussion board, take a quiz, they need to communicate with their instructor using course messages, all that is available through the Blackboard app, and it's a free download. It'll give them notifications when things are due. So please encourage students to download that mobile app. It will be very useful to them. Whoa. There we go. So every once in a while, Blackboard users get this screen, what we call the black screen of death. So don't get too scared. It simply means that someone left Blackboard open a little too long, and as a security measure, it logged them out. But sometimes when we click that gray bar that says return to the page, it doesn't return to the page. So step one, if it doesn't return to the page, close the browser completely, open it back up, and that should clear up the issue. Go back into my EPCC and log back in. If that still doesn't work, then you need to clear your browser history. Students need to clear the browser history. Now, I don't know if on the school issued laptops they're able to clear the browser history. I'm assuming they should be able to do that. If students don't know how to clear their browser history, on the Blackboard Assist page, there's a page on Blackboard that's filled with lots of student resources. We have a PDF with pictures and steps on how to clear your browser history on all the browsers. So Chrome, Firefox, Edge, and Safari. So we have those steps there. Okay.
And I suggest downloading that PDF before you get locked out. Have it backed up just in case.
That's
on my
a great
desktop
idea.
at all times.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And so speaking of the Blackboard Assist page, that's a link on the base navigation in Blackboard. And this is a student resource portal. So they can go there. They have the link there to the dual credit advisors, to the CSD, to the libraries. Almost all the EPCC resources for students are on this page. So they essentially don't have to leave Blackboard to go to the EPCC website. We're kind of bringing it to them. Now, it doesn't have a lot of information. It's just a little description with a link that sends them to the appropriate web page. Tutoring's there. We also have there the handbook for students. If you want a copy of it to go over with it, go over it with your students in class, email us again at DLSS, and we can send you a copy of that handbook. Okay. All right. So I shouldn't say many. There are quite a few faculty at EPCC who use Respondus Lockdown Browser and Monitor to help deter cheating in online courses. Andy, again, has worked with all the IT departments of the schools and the districts to ensure that they have the latest lab version of Respondus Lockdown Browser. It should be on in all your labs, and it should be on all student devices, their laptops that have been checked out to them. If for some reason a student does not have Lockdown Browser on their checked out device, they need to contact the IT department at their school so that they can have it installed. But I know Andy has already sent them out the latest version of it. So they should not have any issues with taking those exams. There are a few new features with Respondus Lockdown Browsers, such as an option that allows students to show their work. So for example, if Ms. Gonzalez has students take a math test online and they're working out problems on paper, they can take pictures of their papers where they worked out the problems and submit photos of those pages. And there's also a new option that also records the student's screen as they're taking their test. So you can see where they're clicking or how they're clicking. I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of like click, 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 click. I'm like, how are you answering questions that quickly? It's going to be interesting. So there's some new features there on Respondus that students may have to use. No questions, okay. We've said it plenty of times. Students need to check their college email. As an instructor, in my syllabus, I put a statement about the importance of college email and how it's also going to help prepare them for their adult work life, because you all know we live by email. So it's just really important skill for them to learn and to master. But their EPCC email is important, not only because they get important information about the college and things of that nature, but if they can access their email, they can access just about everything else at EPCC. They can also opt into notifications via email from Blackboard. So when something is due, when something's been uploaded to the class, things of that nature. But most importantly, students also will receive copies of faculty announcements in their email, reminders, because a lot of those functions are coming into Ultra. And one of the big ones are the assignment and test submission receipts. So in Blackboard Learn Original, students would only get a receipt when they submitted an assignment. Now with Ultra, they get receipts when they submit assignments and tests, because gone are the days of dog ate my homework. 2023, now it's Blackboard ate my homework. I swear I submitted it. If students submitted something, they will get a pop-up window, a receipt with the name of the course, the name of the assignment or test, the size of the file, because students will also play this game. Their essay is due tonight. They didn't get a chance to do it. They'll submit the essay or the assignment without submitting anything or attaching anything, and they'll say, I turned it in. Well, the assignment receipt also shows the size of the file, which in this case would be 0 because they didn't attach anything. Okay, they get a copy of these receipts in their EPCC email. So if they tell a faculty member, I promise I turned this in, the faculty is going to be customer service and ask for the receipt. They have to provide that receipt. That's the evidence that they turned something in. And if mysteriously they don't have the receipt, but they have the submission number, the faculty member can also confirm that in their gradebook in Blackboard. So they can try different things, but it's just not going to work. Blackboard is tracking everything. So please tell them to look at those receipts and keep them in their email, not to delete them, at least until the course is over. Their grade has been posted, then they can delete those receipts, but don't shred, don't delete those receipts until you don't need them anymore, until tax season is over. And by that, I mean final grades. Okay. And we also send students important emails from DLSS, like if Blackboard is down or something, reminders of things like the new handbook for the next semester, for spring semester, things of that nature. So we also contact students every once in a while, not too much, but we do send them important emails. Okay. Oh, here are some examples of those receipts. So these are two examples of receipts. One is for, I think, a test. Or not, yes, and one is for an essay where they had to submit the file, and you can see the size of the file there. So that means they actually attach something. If it says 0, they didn't attach anything. So they're trying to kind of get away with it. So this is what the emails will look like. Okay. This is the handbook for fall. The student handbook, it's got a lot of great information to help students. This handbook, we usually have it ready by early August. So it's a great document. It's about 10, 11, maybe more pages. It's a great document to go over with students those first days or weeks before our classes begin. Lots of great information. Again, if you need a copy of it, a hard copy, just email DLSS and we can send you that PDF immediately. But I encourage you to look it over. There's some information that's specific. Sometimes if you are a dual credit student, you know, we make reference to that for some of those things, but it has important dates, links, videos for study tips, lots of great information. That last page can be very helpful. It tells them who to call when they're having technical issues. So they're going to the right person from the beginning. Speaking of where to go, if the student is having issues with their school issued device, of course, they need to go to their school or their school district. Browser issues, things like installing lockdown browser, because of course, we know those computers are locked down. So they need to go to their IT contact there on campus. Now, if they're having issues with Blackboard, Respondus Lockdown Browser, Collaborate Smarter Measure, or UJA, that is the distance learning department. Even though we deal with educational technologies or instructional technologies, we are not an IT department, we are an instructional department. So the scope of the technologies we work with is very narrow, the ones on the slide. All other technologies, for the most part, again, my EPCC, banner, all those things, email, are the IT department. Now, our office is open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. We also have a virtual office with that link right there on the distance learning webpage. The virtual office is such a big help to us because it helps us help faculty and students much better. Faculty call us or students call us on the phone and say, well, I'm clicking on the thingy and it's not working. And we're like, what thingy are you talking about? I can't see what you're doing. But if they come to our virtual office, we can have them share their screen and we can see, oh, no, click on the other thingy, not that thingy. And then it makes it a lot easier to help them because Blackboard is so visual. So our virtual office, we're here to help. But if it's after hours, after 5 p.m. on the weekends, students can call the Blackboard Help Desk toll-free at that number. That help desk is available 24/7. And the really neat thing about the help desk is if for some reason they can't assist them, because it really is only technical help. It's not like my course isn't in Blackboard. That's an enrollment issue, not a technical issue. But students will get a ticket number as evidence that they called the help desk to try to resolve their issue. If the help desk can't resolve it, it gets kicked up to our office and then we'll take care of it. Okay. There's our phone number, 831-3111. Again, the IT department at EPCC takes care of all these other issues. My EPCC, banner, Teams, OneDrive, email, login credentials. And they're at 831-6440. Now, students should reach out to the instructors if these are the issues they're experiencing. If they don't understand the instructions to the coursework or the instruction, if there's something missing, the instructor says, quiz 7 is open, but they can't find 7 quiz or quiz number 7. Technical issues that prevent them from submitting something, they need to notify their instructor right away. They really do. I teach at the college too, and it's frustrating when something was due a week ago. Well, I was having technical issues. Well, why didn't you tell me this the moment they happened, right? So sometimes even with their phones, if they take a picture of the screen to show that error that pops up, that's evidence right there. So that can be really, really helpful. If they miss deadlines, issues with publisher content and connection. We don't have back access to those like Pearson and those kinds of things. So they need to go to their instructor first, and then hopefully the instructor provides them help desk information for those publishers, required course materials, things of that nature. All of that instruction, those instructional questions should go to the instructor. That's it. That's enough from me, at least. So any other questions with regard to Blackboard? I think I put everyone to sleep.
I don't think so. I mean, the chat's been, no, don't say that. That's a lot of information. And I was
It is.
going to add the thing about it being posted on the dual credit website, but there was a question and Lorena covered that very well. There's an if students don't mind posting, let's see, if students are not, oh, I'm losing things here. Are not on Blackboard next week, what can they do to not fall behind? Did you see that one, Luz?
Yes,
I
think
do see it.
kind of goes to an earlier question that I just I added to your answers to. Students are being registered still.
Right.
Well, maybe I shouldn't say unfortunately, but the way it is at this moment is that each dual credit early college student, whether they're on site or in a dedicated dual credit online section, they have to be enrolled one by one by one. They have to check all of their requirements, their forms, their prerequisites, one by one by one. And dual credit early college high school students are a third of our enrollment. So that's
right. There's like 9,000 students and 5 people that are enrolling everybody.
Yes. So it does take time. And we understand that your students may be put into these classes later. So I mentioned in the response on the chat, we encourage you to have those students reach out to their faculty, to their instructor of record, explain, I was added late. Is there anything that I missed? Can I make it up? Our faculty should be understanding in that it wasn't the student's fault. And a lot of us do know, especially these last few semesters, not to make big ticket items due the first week, because even additional traditional students are still being added to classes.
I will say they do the online sections first, though. So the likelihood is a little less that you'll have a lot of students, but for those of you that are dual credit instructors, you may have sections that don't have any population yet in your face-to-face classes. The online classes are pretty good. They will do occasionally 1 or 2 students, but it's not like a whole bunch.
Right. Yes. But still have them reach out, because that I think if you have any takeaway from our training today, the communication is so important in online classes between students and instructor, facilitator, instructor. Everybody just needs to be on the same page.
My colleague Shanna Thomas from Isleta had a question. If you don't mind posting the setup for the generic password when they first log in, and would that be?
I think you mentioned it, Lou. I don't know if there's a slide for it.
I don't think there's a slide for it, but I know it used to be something like EPCC dash, and then their 6-digit birthday, I think it was.
It's their birthday. I mean, don't they, they get that from IT, don't they? I mean,
right, when they're first enrolled, when they're first enrolled, there's that. And when they call IT to get that their login information, IT is going to need to confirm their identity. And one of the things they're going to ask them for is their EPCC ID number, probably. So make sure students have that somewhere secure, their EPCC ID number also.
There's also a question about some students have difficulty getting, sorry, Shanna, I didn't know you were going to respond.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say thank you. I was just trying to avoid calling IT. I appreciate it.
It's tough,
sorry, my dear. Some students have difficulty getting the course tests from their high school texts. What can we do to accommodate them? Your dual credit contact is the person that you have to talk to in the high school. And you really need to know who that person is, because they, by procedure, which we didn't go over that because the procedure's huge. So we just wanted to stick with facilitators. But you have a designated person who needs to have the answer to that question. I hope that helps. It's probably not an ideal answer.
Dean Badea likes to tell a story of one school. They didn't have the textbooks, they didn't have the textbooks. They called around. Turns out the books were in the book room, but nobody communicated that. So check around your campus. Maybe the books are there. If there is an issue getting those books, let Dean Badea's office know. They have a way. They'll contact the right people to get that information. The generic password is EPCC-2 month day year.
There we go.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Anything else?
I did post the sign-in link one last time, and I'm going to post an evaluation form. Let us know anything you'd like us to cover, people you'd like us to bring in. That would be really wonderful.
Absolutely. We want to thank all of you for attending. We know that it's been kind of a long week, and we hope that we can be of service throughout the rest of the semester. And thank you, ladies. Thank you all. And I will be here for just a few seconds, I would think, in case somebody wants to ask a question. So I'm glad that you found it informative. Have a great fall semester.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Yes, I have a question, ma'am. So I'm a dual credit teacher at